Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs versus Outlast, the Battle of Horror. Both games are recent releases, both have been reviewed by myself, both have their own merits and flaws, and so let's talk about how they stack up against one another. A Machine for Pigs has quite a lot to live up to. The original Amnesia: The Dark Descent, it really brought something new to the table. It threw players into a world in which they could only run away. There was no way of fighting back against these monsters. Outlast, developer Red Barrel's debut effort, also had quite a bit of hype surrounding it. At E3 this year, it was deemed a title most likely to make you faint, so there was a lot of hype surrounding it there, and that's where I actually found out about it. So I'm going to compare the two now. It may be a kind of unorthodox approach as I'm starting with sound, but I feel that really makes a horror game these days. Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs, in my opinion, has the perfect soundtrack, and for those who dared to wear headphones, it really enhanced the game's ability to scare you. As you went from the mansion to the outside to whatever came next, I won't spoil it, you really begin to hear the transition. It's a vivid audio change and you feel like you're more in danger, you feel like you're in a more unnatural location, and the audio just nailed it for me. For Outlast, it's more of the same really. In my reviews I said that both games had flawless audio, and I still stand by that. However, while the audio in Outlast worked together with the consistent scares, never really allowing you to take a break unless you pause the game, A Machine for Pigs sometimes seemed to rely too heavily on the audio by building up the tension, building it up to the point where you expected something to happen and you were afraid it was going to, and then nothing ultimately occurring. There was nothing to be frightened of, and yes, it creates paranoia, but it also makes you aware of the rare encounters. You start to feel like they got a bit lazy with these scares. The stories for both also get top marks. I'd say Amnesia wins overall, as I really felt that it not only immersed me, but it genuinely interested me in what was going on and progressing. I really enjoyed picking up the notes that are littered about throughout the game to really flesh out the narrative, and I enjoyed the story definitely overall. Outlast, on the other hand, it reels you in, it tears you apart for 5 hours, and then finally releases you. Visually, both games do the job. A Machine for Pigs will run on less demanding setups, and therefore more PC gamers can enjoy it. Then you have Outlast, which is simply gorgeous, gruesomely gorgeous. There is blood that reflects the light. It looks absolutely superb. You can see it on screen. It looks simply fantastic. Now on to the main meat of this gameplay. So A Machine for Pigs feels a lot less clunky than the previous games, and the pacing is a lot better. It has memorable moments that I vividly recall scaring me. For example, I had one pig man running down an alley chasing me, and it scared the crap out of me, and I remember that, I recall that, and it is one of my favourite moments. Changes from the original Amnesia: The Dark Descent, though, kind of watered down the experience for me. For those of you who haven't played it or seen PewDiePie play it, in The Dark Descent you had to manage your sanity and your oil, and also your supply of different tools, mainly tinderboxes to light the way. You had to try and avoid dark areas, but the light path was usually the dangerous path. You were kept in constant fear of going insane or running out of oil and being left in perpetual darkness. When developing A Machine for Pigs, for whatever reason, the Chinese room decided to abandon that mechanic entirely. Players are allowed to use an always-on lamp, and there is no fear of going insane. This does make the game easier and less frustrating, which may appeal to the masses, I guess, the casuals, but for me and other horror game fans, the lack of being constantly wary of your sanity really does make for a less intense game. Outlast has borrowed whatever mechanics it's wanted from other games and then massively enhanced them. The camcorder eats through batteries that you do have to find. It doesn't give you unlimited night vision, and so you really feel pressured and you have to ration your usage of the night vision mode, and luckily for the player there are plenty of batteries spread about. I do wish the developers had been a little less generous with batteries and forced me to scrounge around in the dark a little more, as I do think there was potential for more tension there, but perhaps they're not that cruel. The experience is scary enough as it is. Both Amnesia and Outlast task you with pulling levers, pushing buttons, all that simple stuff, and then scare you to death while you're doing it, and both do that a lot. It can get a bit old in both games. I don't think they want me solving calculus. I can't do it anyway when I'm surrounded by monsters. So simple puzzles made more difficult by the fact you're shitting yourself is definitely a decent way to go, and I don't mind that so much. You are relatively limited by the fact there's no combat, so platforming and these basic puzzles are really all you've got, and that's why there's such a huge focus on audio and visuals, creating a world in which even simple tasks are really difficult to carry out. The enemies in both games are fairly weak. You don't really fear their aggression, only their grotesqueness. They do their job well enough, they make you fear them, but they don't really add to the challenge of the game. If I had to recommend one of these games to you, I would choose Outlast. It is almost flawless in its execution, and if you wear headphones and sit in a dark room, it will entertain and scare any of you who play it. For those of you who have played either game or both, let me know your thoughts down below. This has been me, Mac, coming in your ears. Goodbye.